Welcome, everybody. It's Dr. Ellie Harper, the Human Flow Psychologist, and you are listening to The Truth About Mental Health, where we talk about topics that have caused so much damage that people don't come for therapy anymore.
Yeah.
I am joined by two very special guests today. Pastor Jonathan Fries from the Music of Life Church Appleton and Pastor Joel Swakowski from the Music of Life Church Kimberley, both in Wisconsin, USA. How are you both, gentlemen?
Wonderful.
So well.
What an intro. Holy
What
cow,
an
you
intro.
pulled me right in. I'm in.
Yes. So lovely to be here, Dr.
Yeah.
Ellie.
Well, yes, it's a great pleasure to have you both here. I just want to give you a bit of a heads up because I'm aware, having watched your previous press tour interviews, that there is a sort of format or structure that where people tend to ask you about 2 or 3 episodes from a particular season. And I would like to suggest today a break away from that format and do something a little bit different, if you are both willing.
Willing and intrigued.
Yeah, very, very willing. This is so exciting.
Yeah.
This is the most English accent we've ever had at an interviewer.
But I do my best. So what I would like to propose, so just to let you know, I have listened to all 4 seasons of What the Flock podcast. I've listened to all 4 seasons of the Music of Life Church podcast. And what I would like to propose is that I pick a topic, an episode, I should say, from each of the 4 seasons that you've published so far, and ask you a couple of questions on each of those. How do you feel about that?
A little nervous.
I know. I'm like, oh, okay. Let's see how much we know.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, this is great. Nice little challenge.
Okay, and just to make it a little bit of fun, what I'd like to do is to ask you to guess which topic or which episode I'm going to ask about. So, your faces. If you need a list of what, because it's a long time ago now, season 1.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to start with season 1, right? And so I'd like you to guess. Oh, go on. Joel, hand up.
I have a guess.
Go on.
Season 1, Women in Leadership.
Okay.
That's my guess.
Okay. Pastor Jonathan.
May I ask what are the episodes of season 1?
Yeah, you may. I've got it loaded up on my phone.
Yes, please. Yes, please. Yes.
So we have drinking, voting, tattoos, smoking, swearing, tithing, reading your Bible, church attendance, sex before marriage, divorce, humility, women in leadership, kings in retirement, wise men and kings, and love.
All right, I want to change my answer. I'll let Jonathan go first. But PJ, you got an answer?
I want to say church attendance.
Okay.
And I'm going to say love.
I need a buzzer. Because it's for both of you.
Oh, the bad.
It's wrong. No, it's just a wrong
So,
buzzer, not a good buzzer.
how
Just
many
an
guesses
out.
do we get? Because my third is sex before marriage. No? I don't know.
I'm gonna do this for each season. So
This is so fun. Yeah.
So far, 0 point for both of you. 0
And I
point.
guess 3 times. I'll take -3 points. Ugh.
So let me enlighten you. The topic from season 1 that I would like to ask you about is humility. Yes, it is. So for anybody watching, by humility, we're talking about the ability to see something from a different perspective, right? Would you agree, guys?
Yeah, that's a great way to sum it up. I'm
Okay.
feeling pretty humbled right now after my failure of 3 guesses, so appropriate.
Okay, so yes, hopefully you'll see as we go through this that there's a method to my madness. But I wanted to share with you that being humble has been a really important step on my journey and continues to be. And I wanted to give you an example of that. So from my perspective, until a few years ago, my plan for happiness, if you like, my plan for what I thought I wanted in life consisted of, these 4 check boxes, or tick boxes, as we say over here, around having a house, having a husband, having a career, and having a child. And I spent the first part of my life moving through those things, ticking those off my list. And I got to a point where I had all those things: career, house, marriage, child, family, and I still wasn't happy. God damn it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is frustrating.
Yeah.
So much.
Yeah, so the reason I'm sharing this with you both is because I had to, I think, learn how to be humble and go, okay, this hasn't worked. What am I going to do going forward? And I had to, part of that was I had to admit that I was wrong. So what I wanted to ask you both, first of all, is why do you think that people generally find it so difficult to admit when they are wrong?
Well, it's the human condition, really. I think there's this, like, one of the biggest faults I see in humanity, just universally, is this comparative mindset of what it means to be an adult, what it means for me to be happy, and this kind of standard that we've all like naturally place on ourselves and on others as to what it means to be an adult and mature. And it is this idea of never being wrong, really. It's so much more about never appearing wrong than it is about always being right. And I think it's just the natural tendency that we as humans have on how we look at everything. And the Bible talks about this, as man looks on the outward appearance and God looks at the heart. Another way of saying that would be man looks on the effects, the tangible things, and not on the spiritual, at least naturally. And I think because of that, our natural tendency is to be comparative. We compare ourselves to one another, and we deny uniqueness, and we have this standard of, I have to look a certain way. It's because I'm just, the way my brain naturally works, the way my thought process naturally works, is to measure everything in the tangible realm by what I can see physically. And that results in this desire to make things appear to look a certain way. The way things appear is really important. And one of the most difficult things for anybody to do is not only just to be wrong or to admit they're wrong, but the hurdle over that really is the dealing with, what's this going to make me look like? And once you get over that, well, I don't care if I look wrong, then admitting I'm wrong doesn't hurt. It is that appearance, though. So that's where I think, just humans in general, it's where our eyes naturally are, is on the outward appearance. And the biggest thing that's that people are trying to avoid is by looking bad in some way.
Yep.
That's
That's such a good answer.
Yeah, beautiful answer.
It's a beautiful answer. And I want to take that answer and build off of it and not go too far forward into the next season. But humility leads into the, why people don't want to be wrong. And I think goes back to people's belief about God. Why are people so afraid of, seeing another perspective or being wrong? Because if you're wrong, then there needs to be the source of right out there. So if I'm right and I'm never wrong, then I don't need God, because I am God.
Yeah. Wow.
And so as soon as I admit that I'm wrong, the confrontation in all of that is there's got to be another source of right if you're not it. And
I'm in need.
Exactly. And it
Yeah.
just shatters people's worldview. So what I love about what Pastor Joel just said is you have to guard against being wrong, because everybody knows that they're wrong. I think that people want to be right. So you have to guard, because you're not perfect, you have to pretend that you are. You have to strive really hard to put out this appearance that you are without flaw. And therefore, you just have a bunch of people walking around acting like they are God. They are the source of right. And what they say is fair. And because I say it, it is that way. So that would be my my answer. I think that they're hand in hand appearance. You have to appear to be right. And if you admit that you're wrong, you as a human, you're in need, like what Pastor Joel said.
Yeah. And that's great. Thank you both so much. It resonates so much. I feel like for me, I'm sure there are probably other people the same way. For me, it took despite all my best efforts, the appearance to be well and truly shattered.
Yeah.
Before I was willing to admit I'm wrong.
Yeah, I want to jump in there, because the thing is that in the episode we talk about how if you're not going to be humble, if you're not willing to see another perspective, including that you could be wrong, then the only path that you have to go down is to be humiliated.
Yeah.
If you're not humble, you will be humiliated in the end. And a very wise man once said to me, he said, "Jonathan, do you know what God does with idols?" So idols being, golden images of, beauty. Do you know what God does to idols? He breaks them. He crushes them. He demolishes them. That's what he talks about with the children of Israel. He wanted them to break all of their idols, to smash them, to shatter them. Exactly.
Yep.
So that's what God will do with us if we are going to be idols.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. Thanks, God. Learning to
gonna help us one way or another, right?
Thanks, God.
Thanks, God. Learning to love that.
Oh, I love it. That's so good. Well, there you go. I'm glad you can thank him.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So here we go again, right? Season 2. Season 2. What episode am I going to ask you about? And again, if you need a refresher, feel free.
Yeah, I would love.
I need a refresher.
I'm just gonna ask. I'm not gonna even try without hearing the list.
Okay, well, so because you start off with your series of 6 episodes. So first, God is love, the 3 omnis, sovereignty, the names of God, God's existence, God's nature, depression, apologies versus confession, repentance, forgiveness, faith, sin, grace, salvation, and once saved, always saved.
Sin.
I think God's nature.
Right.
Both of us got a buzzer again. Oh.
Wait, can I get another guess?
Yes, Joel
What were
had
the-
3 guesses the first time, so
Okay.
Thanks for reminding everybody.
What comes after God's nature?
oh, hang on, I'll just have to have another look.
It's kind of the in my opinion, I know what episode it is, and it is very much could just as well be the 7th episode on a 7-episode arc.
Depression comes after God's nature.
Yeah.
That's
Is that
that
guess
one.
number 2?
Yeah, depression.
Correct.
Yeah.
I can't give you a point though because it was your second answer.
No, you can't, and I understand that, and that hurts, but I understand it.
Just wouldn't be just.
It wouldn't
Right.
be just. It's not fair.
It would
That's
be
not the game we're playing.
enabling.
It would be, and we're not going to do that here. Not
No.
here.
No.
No. Okay.
Not any. No, we will try. Not anywhere.
Right.
So, right, yeah. So with regards to depression, so, yeah. So I mean, yeah. For people that may not know, you know, I am a psychologist. I've been working in the field of psychology for about 17 years now, one way or another. And what I would like to share with you both here is that I have experienced depression. And it was, you know, kind of following on from what I said about my plan kind of going all wrong and needing, eventually being able to admit that I was wrong. I felt really, really depressed. And it was, the first time that I had experienced depression in that way. And it just did feel very strange to me, having been working with people who were experiencing depression, and you know that was my job, helping other people who had depression, and then to find myself in that situation, I just didn't really quite know how to handle it. Well, I did go and see my doctor at the time. And I was prescribed medication, and I was referred for a form of therapy called cognitive behavioural therapy. Through here, we have the National Health Service in the UK. Through that, well, something very strange happened to me, because I went home thinking, well, the doctor was very nice and, did what he could and everything else. And I got home and I felt even worse. And the reason that I felt even worse was because I just knew that medication wasn't going to be the route for me to take. And I just knew that therapy through the NHS was not the help that I needed. And I don't know how I knew that. I don't know why I knew that, but I just knew it. I just felt it in the very core of me. And it brought up a big contradiction for me. If I was not going to accept the therapy that was available to me through the NHS, I was working in the NHS up until that point. What did that say about the therapy that I had been offering to other people for the last decade? And I didn't really know at that point what a contradiction was, but I now do. And that for me was an absolute whopper of a contradiction. And I felt even worse having, realized this contradiction. So I'm mentioning this because, in your episode on depression, you talk about contradictions being one of the main causes of depression and being able to resolve those. So this was another important step on my journey, being able to identify that contradiction and what I was going to do about it. But the question that I want to put to you both is, what is a whopper of a contradiction that you have both had in your own lives, and how did you resolve it?
I have like 8 I could choose from right off the top of my head. Here's
Sorry,
one
you
that,
were breaking up when you asked the question. What
what was the
did you just-
question? What's your
What- sorry,
favorite ice
what?
cream flavor?
Yeah. Oh,
Rocky
that's
Road.
easy. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
easy. Oh, okay. Next season.
This is great. A whopper of a contradiction.
Yeah,
whopper.
whopper of a
Yeah.
contradiction.
So that's great. I'm glad you said that, because I know, there's varying degrees of contradictions, and I appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing a whopper in your own life, where the contradictions that tend to lead to the greatest amounts of depression and this lowering of energy in our unconscious brain are contradictions based in these really deep, big areas in our life. And clearly, you being a psychologist, a contradiction in that area is going to be huge. Hard pill to swallow. Thank you again. For me, it's all wrapped up in how I teach. The big contradiction, the big thing that stands out to me was learning that it's not okay for me to just directly teach people however I deem fit, even if my intentions are to help that person, to directly teach somebody who hasn't asked for it, who isn't ready for it, who I'm not sure if they even need this information. I'm just projecting and assuming they do. To do that in one step, A to B, I found out that was a contradiction when I finally took a step back. And it was Pastor Jonathan who helped me see this, when I recognized, even as a teacher myself, I don't want to be taught that way. And it's transformative for me. And what it led me to doing is trying to be what we call more cherishing up front, more caring up front, and allowing the teaching to come and follow that care, to help people feel safe first. There's a big thing I learned that was right at the heart of this contradiction, was people won't grow if they're not feeling safe. And what I want is to help people grow, give them information, effective information, the best information, the deepest information. But if they don't feel safe first, they're not going to hear anything I have to say. And I want to feel that safety too. I want to feel cared for. So when that got unpacked for me, I remember the entire next year of my life was dedicated to me working on becoming a better storyteller, which really was an effort in me being more caring in how I delivered the information that I believe God has put on my heart to give to people. And what you learn is stories. If you can tell stories, it's usually a great way to be more caring and cherishing up front, instead of just, this is the definition of this word, this is God's nature, this is what grace means. Are you humble, Dr. Ellie? Tell it through a story. Share it myself. Those are ways to be more caring. And again, it's how I like being taught. I love hearing stories. I appreciate a good storyteller. So that's what I did. That's how I basically uncovered, and how I transformed out of that contradiction, was to do the opposite of what I was doing. And yeah, it definitely helped. That was one of the whoppers I've dealt with. Great question. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Pastor
Amazing
Jonathan?
question. Yeah. This is Dr. Ellie. This is why I love This is one of the reasons why I love Pastor Joel so much, is that he's such a super sharer. He gives me all this time to think of my answer. And as he's talking, I'm like changing 4 times about what my contradiction is. So thanks, Pastor Joel. Amazing answer. I'm thinking about, the whopper of a contradiction being measured by the time that I was the most depressed.
Okay.
Where I'm like, okay, what was the biggest whopper of a contradiction that I had? When was I the most depressed? When was I so depressed that my parents were worried that I was going to kill myself? That was when my plan for happiness broke and fell apart. And I was playing in a band and was going to grow old with those guys, and all my hopes and dreams and future was, with those guys, and I liken it to being married, where you have all of your dreams and hopes, and your future is you see with these people. And so I saw my future with those guys. And when it all fell apart, I moved back in with my parents. I was, 24, 25. And that was the only time that, like I said, that they were worried that I was going to kill myself, because the contradiction that I believed is who I am is a musician, or who I am is a member in this band. And therefore, if I identify, if who I am is a member in this band, and I no longer have this band, then my purpose for being is no longer needed. And therefore, it would make sense for me to kill myself, for me to end it, because my purpose is over. So sorting through that contradiction of knowing, I'm not what I have. I had this band, we were on tour, and then I was playing music and recording and traveling all around, et cetera, doing all of those things and playing music. But I'm not what I have. I'm not what I do. I am something that is deeper than what I do and what I have, and who I am informs what it is that I do and what it is that I have. So resolving that contradiction is really what saved my life. Discovering who I am that's an instrument. That is my instrument. And I can live that instrument in every single thing that I do. And I can experience much more music, quantitatively and qualitatively, in all of these areas in my life, besides just physically playing music. So resolving that saved my life.
Beautiful.
I love that. And thank you both for, again, being vulnerable and sharing. That was just, lovely from both of you. My heart.
Yeah, thanks for setting the tone.
Yeah, amazing.
Oh, right. Okay. Just taking a moment to absorb that. Right. So here we go on. I don't know why I have to do this. I just feel like
I imagine that there's probably some theme music that we want there.
Yeah, should be, right? I need
Right.
a theme song. I need a theme song. Well, it's a game show thing, I feel.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So season 3, chaps, what do you think is the episode from season 3 that I'm going to ask you about?
Yeah, I'll need a list again. I know the theme of season 3, but I would appreciate the list of episodes.
I'm just going to previous page on your list of episodes. There's been so many now. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So season 3, let's have a look. Okay, here we go. So we have sanctification, witnessing, evangelism, laborers, fellowship versus relationship, destructive thinking, mystery versus puzzle, animal thinking, Gnostics, human thinking, profitability, reward, godly thinking, doctrine, and discipleship.
What a season. Jeez.
What a season, right?
Holy cow.
I have a guess. May I hazard a guess?
You may hazard a guess, sir.
laborers.
Okay. Joel, Pastor Joel, do you have a guess?
Even though I've been wrong every guess, all 4 guesses so far, I was at least convinced that I was right. This, I have no clue. So here's a shot. Fellowship, relationship.
So interesting. Well, Pastor Jonathan gets a point here, and I'm just going to do the sound effect. Ding, 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 ding. Laborers. Yes.
Just
laborers.
for Joel. Bravo, PJ.
I'm glad you did that sound effect for yourself.
Yeah. You wanted an
I didn't want to put you through that, but yeah.
I deserve it.
Oh yes.
Yes, so laborers.
Laborers.
Yeah. Wow. In fact, guys, I have to tell you that I was probably just at the start of season 2 when because I think when I heard your press season interview about laborers, and as I heard that first, I thought I need to listen to this episode right now, and I did. I skipped ahead to listen to it. Mind blown. Right, so if I can share with you a little bit about why. So one of the things that you
I love the sharing. I love this share. I love every question begins with Ellie sharing about herself. I had some popcorn.
That's so good.
What's coming next?
What do you call popcorn over there?
Popcorn.
Okay.
Popcorn.
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 All right, now I'm in it.
I'm not a Cockney, but like
Popcorn.
Right, so laborers, yes. So one of the things that just hit me straight away from this episode was where you shared that a laborer is someone who gets help when they need it and who gives help when they can. So that just, I don't know, it was like an arrow that pierced me in my heart somewhere. Because again, just relating to my own experience, I was working in an area, and you also talk about how the role of a labourer is to help people mentally and emotionally. And I was going out day in, day out, trying to help people mentally and emotionally, and I felt that was my purpose, if you like, or my role to do that, but I just was getting more and more drained because I didn't feel like I had, the more I did it, the more I felt like I didn't have the understanding or the skills to be able to do that effectively. And part of that was because I believe that I hadn't asked for help in the areas where I needed help. And I hadn't been through a process of repairing, problems, damage in areas where I needed to do that. And I personally believe that is the same for a lot of psychologists, counsellors, therapists, coaches out there who perhaps have this view, and I was one of this group, had this view that I don't need to worry about me because I'm going to make up for it by helping these other people. So my question is, what do you think will be the outcome for those people who, believe they're labouring, but they haven't asked for help, they haven't healed the things that they need to heal within themselves? Do you think that they will really be able to help other people?
No, I think the couple things. One is this introduces another massive contradiction.
Yes.
And what I see the outcome being for these people is possible depression, or what Jesus had compassion on the multitudes because they were distressed and scattered, meaning they were cast down in their thought process. You could say depressed, and they were separated, isolated from one another. So that's the end result of a person who is focused on helping other people at the expense of first helping themselves. That's what anybody who's down that path has to look forward to, which is daunting. But the other thing that really stands out to me in your story and in this scenario is what's the motivating factor now, though? Because I want to help people, and there's many people have been created with a uniqueness where the way they are motivated is to help other people. So how can I help motivate somebody who is naturally focused on helping others first to remember that they have to take care of themselves? And the big thing that I've been reminded so much this year, literally this weekend, when I preached a sermon for my church, I made this point again, is you can't give something to someone else that you don't have yourself. Where this is really scary is, like, I've actually heard stories of people who worked at suicide hotlines who are dealing with suicidal ideations themselves. And all it's doing is making the person who's trying to help people deal with this major issue even worse. This person who works for a suicide hotline is suicidal and is becoming progressively deeper into that ideation because she's trying to help people not commit suicide. That's an extreme example of what this looks like, but that's where, like, what does this person need to be able to help people overcome this major issue in their life? Is they need to be living out the causes of whatever that is themselves before they can be giving it to somebody else. So that's really those are the two big things I see, is the end result of a person in this scenario is they're going to end up being isolated and depressed, and their hope of being able to help other people is going to constantly be diminished more and more in the long run.
Oh, man, you just preached about this.
That was, I mentioned this like multiple times
sad,
this year about that you can't give something to somebody you don't have, because I'm talking a lot about evangelism in the church right now.
Right.
And so much about evangelism is amplifying this message, right? This message God has given us. Or for you, Dr. Ellie, that's this message of mental health and the truth about mental health, and even helping people become aware and exposing the areas in the mental health system that are actually hurting people. You're amplifying this message, but if you're part of the problem and you try to amplify a solution that you haven't even adhered to yourself, there's hypocrisy there, which is a contradiction. And plus it's like, well, why aren't you doing it then? Like, if this works, why aren't you doing it? This is the same as a married couple saying, I want you to have a better marriage than me. Why don't you have a better marriage? Why don't you have a better marriage and then tell people I want you to have the marriage I have? It's the same thing. I can't, where it's like, or don't tell me you want me to have a better marriage, because you're just causing stress on yourself by making these proclamations and by teaching these things to other people that you aren't living out yourself. You're better off just not doing that at all. But again, so many people on this planet are motivated by helping others. Mm-hmm. And it is this really tense backward step we all have to learn to prioritize, and making sure that we help ourselves before we help others. It's like put the oxygen mask on your face before you help your neighbor. The airplane people know how to do it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
But the bigger issues in our life, when it, if it comes to, there's a physical issue on an airplane is one thing, but when it comes to our mental and emotional health, No, that's a big enough issue where I need to help you first, regardless if I'm a disaster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what I think, Dr. Ellie, is that anyone who's in a position of authority or leadership, here's what I was thinking as Pastor Joel was talking, was they give us a view into where the culture's heading. So whoever is leading the charge, whoever is influencing the decisions or the path of people, they're at the forefront, and they are showing us the general populace's future. So
Okay.
anyone who's a psychologist, who's a therapist, who's a counselor, they are influencing the mental health, as Pastor Joel was saying, of other people. So they're showing us where we're heading. And I mean, I think that you, Dr. Ellie, could speak even better to this than where I'm at, but I believe that the issues with counselors, psychologists, and therapists, their own issues, like Pastor Joel was talking about with the suicide hotline, their issues are getting worse and worse and worse and worse. They are supercharging. They have a supercharged thought process for whatever the issues are. So, they're speeding up, and I think that they are going to crash. I'm curious if it's even going to last 10 years. But I would say it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with these therapists, counselors, psychologists in 10 years, because of to see how bad they actually get, to see if the suicide numbers if they go through the roof. Because I tell you what, there is one field that is leading the charge of even that ought to have been ahead of, or even progressing further than these counselors, psychologists, and therapists, which is pastors and leaders. And that's that's one of the reasons why I was like, oh, I think Ellie wants to talk about laborers, because pastors, leaders in the church, because we, the church, have failed. And I think Pastor Joel even talks about this in the podcast, where he says the church has failed. And because the church has failed, we have gotten the resources from the world to help fix.
We contracted out the help in this area.
There it is. We are contracting our laborers to go, no, mental health isn't our thing.
Right.
It's like, emotional health isn't our thing. We're just supposed to pray for you and do all of that stuff. Well, unfortunately, the God that we're serving is supposed to be the one that created the people. So we should probably be listening to him, because he's the mechanic, he's the one that built the car to begin with. So we should probably read his manual, and there's probably answers in that manual to how to fix the thing that he made. That when it breaks itself, and
when it breaks itself, that's beautiful.
When it goes off course, because it wasn't him that made the wrong. No. He made the thing works beautifully.
There's an internal alarm system for when you're running this car wrong. That's how so true. It's so good.
It's so good. It's so it is beautiful. An amazing epic creation that no human could make.
Right.
However, so we should be doing that, and us as pastors. And so what we even said in the episode is, Dr. Ellie, you wouldn't have a job if you wouldn't be doing your same job, or maybe you would be, but it would be in a different field. Maybe it would be, so.
No, I already said thanks God. Now I'm like, thanks guys.
Thanks church. Hey, Dr. Ellie. I think you have some security in your profession. I don't see the church fixing this problem overnight.
Yeah, and so my whole big picture point is, let's look at where pastors are at, and they are a disaster. It is bad. Suicide rates and dropouts and quitting their job and just major mental issues and all of that. It's worse and worse and worse. So that's where I feel like everything's heading.
Mhm.
So, but as things get darker, I was talking to my parents about this. As the climate gets darker, then the light the contrast will be so much brighter. So that
That's
actually
great,
gives
yeah.
me some hope.
Yeah, and I kind of feel the same. I feel like that's where it is. It's interesting what you said, Jonathan, about where things will be with psychologists in 10 years' time, because I feel like it's heading the same way, really. For all these reasons that we've been talking about, and that's where I was going. Other reasons, that's I understand, I understand it now, but I've also had that experience. That's where I was going. I just completely and utterly crashed. And, I mean, thank goodness I did, really, because otherwise, who knows where it would have ended. But I do believe that there's a lot of helping professionals, or people who could be labourers, who are heading in the wrong direction, and I don't think they even realize it. But yes, hopefully more and more are going to wake up and notice and see what's happening. And yes, anybody out there who's listening to this, if that's you, get in touch, please.
Yeah, reach out. I love it too. It's like I think it syncs up. A big connection we have with you, Doc, is just from a different context. It sounds like we both are really trying to help people understand what it really means to be a laborer and how we can really help one another. We're dealing with the damage of the church and trying to break out from underneath that, and you're dealing with the damage of the mental health system and the psychology and what has been taught and believed for decades now, for the same purpose of like really creating laborers. It's awesome.
So season 4, chaps, what do you think? Which episode do you think I want to ask you about in relation to season 4? Would you like me to run through the list again?
Yeah, that'd be great. I think I have it, but
I feel like I said that. I feel like I said that a little bit judgmentally. Again, I didn't mean it to sound like that.
It felt that way, but whatever. Let's but that's my own insecurity of having failed every round of this game you were playing. But I think I'm gonna get this one.
Okay, so let's go for it. So here's season 4 episodes. So we start with church versus business, acts of church to 4 causes, fellowship, a cause of church, breaking of bread, a cause of church, spiritual gifts, 3 classes, Jesus, I love that, Jesus.
Yep. We're like, why did it take till season 4 to cover?
Right?
There he is. Right.
Yep.
Okay. Positional spiritual gifts, manifestational spiritual gifts, apostles' doctrine, a cause of church, mercy, confrontation, unity, motivational spiritual gifts, spiritual value, and prayer, a cause of church.
I'm guessing motivational spiritual gifts.
Okay.
Confrontation.
This is so exciting. Joel, ding, ding, ding.
I'd like to thank my mom. She's a light to my life. Okay, anyways.
She's definitely watching.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, Mom.
Yay! Oh, I feel better now because you both got one.
Oh, that's so great.
I'm giving it clues to my motivational spiritual gift here.
Yes.
Right. So, yes, motivational spiritual gifts. Well, again, chaps, I have to say, all the episodes on spiritual gifts, again, just mind blown, but in a good way. And so helpful. But yes, I had to focus, I felt, on motivational spiritual gifts. And again, just wanted to share with you that yeah, so it must be about 2 years ago now that I found out that one of my gifts is compassion, for the people out there that hadn't picked that up already. And it was just, yeah, you say it in the episode, it's the game changer of all game changers, right? Like, you know, it was just this epiphany for me, kind of you know, somebody explaining that, you know, this is what it means to have the gift of compassion. This is you know, what it might look like. This is what it might look like when you use it the right way and when you use it the wrong way. And it was just like, wow, I feel more known than I ever have. And you know, felt, you know, feel that was the basis kind of like for then sort of starting to build my self-esteem, felt more equipped to kind of step into that more, and you know, how to use that for the benefit of other people. So right, so what I would like to ask is, when did you both kind of fully understand what your motivational spiritual gift was, and how did that change things for you?
So if we go back to before Music Life Church was founded in 2013, we were a home church starting January 2007. And a huge thing we synced up over and were passionate about as a small group of people meeting in a living room was, who is God and who are we? You know, very much stuff we've covered in the podcast and stuff me and Pastor Jonathan are very passionate about, and helping the people in our respective Music Life churches understand. And it's really kind of two spectrums in which you can start. It's kind of the gateway of how do you help somebody. And really what we can see, another way to kind of understand what you're doing versus what we're doing, is from our churches, we're often starting from the God perspective and then bringing people into helping them understand who they were created to be. Where a large part in what you're doing, Dr. Ellie, is starting with the person and then bringing them into the spiritual. But it's the same spectrum. It's just, where are you starting on that spectrum? So we were very passionate about helping people determine who they are. And that's what we called it, your R, your spiritual R, who you were created to be. So and this is before we didn't have what we understand about the motivational spiritual gifts until a couple years after the home church started. But we were a group of people who knew that God created us each uniquely, and that uniqueness was deeper than just saying, I'm loved, I'm a child of God, I'm unique. To say I'm loved and I'm unique is not a uniqueness. So we did have the mentality, and we did pursue different avenues of trying to discover, who am I? Who am I and how am I different from you? And my answer should be different than your answer and from everybody else's answer. So for me, before the motivational spiritual gifts teaching became what we know it to be today, I already knew I was a teacher. And I guess I kind of had a leg up, because it is, one, the people who really wanted to get to know me knew that I was just constantly teaching stuff. I was very passionate to learn and very passionate to tell other people about the stuff I was learning. And the word teacher, of all the 7 motivations, is a very commonly used one. So I think I had a leg up just because of the familiarity of what it means to be a teacher. We've all been to school and to, you know, at varying levels of university, depending on what side of the Atlantic you're on. I don't know what you primary and university and all that. So we've all dealt with and experienced teachers our whole life. So I think it was easy to put a name on what I was, from internally what I was and who I am. what that did for me, though, is very, very early on in my walk with the Lord, very, very early on in my purpose of intentionally becoming a leader and a mature human being could be a benefit to the people around him. This was spoken over me, and it was something I believed about myself. And because of that, my confidence in this grew, because I was blessed to have a group of people around me who wanted me to be that person and who saw me as a teacher as something to be looked up to. And that confidence instilled in me is what gave me the courage to take the risks of trying to teach stuff, of leading classes, and of really, taking a lot of the steps that I took that would eventually lead to me becoming the senior pastor of a church, going to seminary, and now even pursuing my doctorate, all stems back from this time period in my life where as a young man who's just at the beginning of this walk of trying to live out his purpose, being a teacher was very much a part of that transformative time of my life. So I was blessed to very, very quickly, upon my awakening, to have this spoken over me and to believe this about myself, which instilled and fostered into me this energy of really working out, what does this mean and how can I do this more often and more effectively.
Awesome.
What a beautiful teacher you are, Joel. I could just sit here and listen all night, but thank you so much for sharing that. That was lovely. Jonathan, what about you?
Yeah, so
Pastor Jonathan, I keep forgetting your title, Pastor Jonathan.
That's okay. When did I really, is the question, when did I fully embrace it? When did I fully embrace my motivational spiritual?
Have you forgotten the question as well? Yeah.
I have that effect on people.
I was just on a journey, my dude.
No, in the nicest possible way, Joel, honestly. Yeah, no, the question was, when did you first feel that you truly learned your motivational spiritual gift, and how did that change things for you?
Yeah, so when did I first truly learn about my motivational spiritual gifts and then embrace it? I would say that there's two stories that come to mind, and they're both several years apart. One was through when I was attending the home church. I was going to a really big church in the Chicagoland area. And so I would kind of trade weekends where I was playing drums, and I was a part of, that church in the Chicagoland area, really big church, playing drums, being on the music team, getting to know some people there. And then different weekends I would drive, 3 hours to come to this little home church that, Pastor Joel was a part of. And that's where we were learning a lot of this stuff. And when I learned all of this, it started to impact me. And the people in the big church in Chicago started to see me changing and growing and becoming more of a leader. So I led a group after they identified that, I led a group of college in a college age ministry, a group of leaders, to help them learn how to think. And that was the class. It was the how to think class. And all we talked about was words and definitions. So here's this word in the Bible. Here's what God's definition was. Here's some scripture to support that. Here's one word. God says this word. Here's his definition. And then here are the verses to support it. And the leaders who went through that course were so drained at the start because the only book we talked about was the Bible. Yeah. So they were so exhausted when I said the only book that we're talking about is the Bible here. And they just were like, the Bible is so draining. It's so annoying. It doesn't make any sense. It's so boring. It is so, uncompelling literature. I do not want to read it. Well, we taught them these definitions and helped them see what God meant by the words that he uses. And all of a sudden, these students were like, whoa. These leaders went, I'm starting to love reading the Bible. They said it's like reading with a highlighter. So when God says love, this is what he means. When God says truth, this is what he means. Life means this, and grace means this. And so they were having all these light bulbs, and it was incredible. Well, they loved reading their Bible. They became a lot closer together. It was incredible. And I wanted to bring that class to the big church to basically say, hey, you have a need. All of churches have a need to grow disciples and to help replicate. And what I did is I offered this class, and I said, I want you guys to have the first stab at doing this class. And I went from leader to leader to leader to leader to leader. I think I may have went like close to a dozen leaders in this big church, until eventually someone said, it's not going to work here, Jonathan. Why don't you go out? Why don't you do your job? And one of the leaders said to me, it sounds like the work that you're doing at the home church is successful. So why don't you continue to do that? And then as that grows, as those seeds grow, we'll give you a call. So before each of these meetings, I was terrified, Dr. Ellie. I was like, oh no, because I'm essentially confronting them and making them aware that they have a leadership gap, and that the way that they're doing their church is not going to work. And so I help them basically see one of the biggest gaps that you have in your church is that people are not able to connect the Bible with their life because they don't have God's definition for those words. If you have God's definition, then the Bible and your life connect. And it's not just, these random weird stories that seem make-believe, So after doing all of that, it was an epiphany for me, because it showed me that, like, being compassionate as well, I am built. Compassion does not mean being nice. Compassion does not mean being sweet. Compassion means bearing the pain of growth in people. And how you bear the pain of growth in people is you confront them on what's wrong. You show them the first step in being a compassion person is, what are people being blind towards? What is the pain in their life that they're choosing to see? Well, we don't know why 10% of our church is leaving every year. No, we can't possibly know. To go, here's the problem. You're crying out to God for the answer. Here's the answer. And then they eventually said, we don't want that. Or you make it work, and then we'll call you if it works. And that was a season in my life that really confirmed that compassion, the best people in the world at confronting things that are wrong, are people like me, people who are compassionate, people who care. Amen. Pastor Joel and I have shared a story, and that was another example of when I've done that. But looking back on my life and putting that together to say, every moment in my life when things have changed and I've grown and I have made leaps and bounds of growth, just astronomical amounts of growth, I look back and I go, that's because I stepped in and I confronted what was wrong. I took ownership and I bore that pain, and I stepped in regardless of how people were going to respond to it. And that is me really embracing that. So now I'm sitting here going, I was made to do this.
Yeah.
The sweet, sensitive people are the best. at bringing the hammer.
Yeah.
So that's one for me.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And just so you know, there's like a big part of me right now that just wants to crawl under the table and hide.
Oh.
Still learning to step into all this confrontation.
Okay, there it is. There it is.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you why, but compassion built for it, right? Dr.
Yeah.
Ellie.
Yeah, 100%. And and I do, and I'm building faith. I'm building faith. The more I do it, the better the better I feel. The better I feel I'm able to help people, and the more meaning that gives to I'm asking my clients to do. So a lot of my clients are compassion as well. So
Yes.
if I don't do it, again, we're back to contradictions and depression again. So yeah,
Right.
I know. Just just on the journey. Let's leave it at that.
Wonderful.
Right. Okay. Right. Is it okay if I just ask you one more question
Please.
before we wrap things up?
Yeah.
Because I just feel that all of these topics, from my perspective, in the role that I have, the job that I do, I feel are all linked in one way or another. And I guess that I wanted to ask from, I already asked about whether what you thought the outcome would be for labourers who aren't willing to kind of do their own work and and do the healing and growth that they need to do. But I just feel kind of I wanted to ask really, for psychology going forward, for people who potentially could and ought to be labourers within psychology going forward, do you think that that is going to be possible for them to actually help people mentally and emotionally if they don't recognize people's uniqueness, people's motivational spiritual gifts?
No.
Thank you, Pastor John. Pastor Jonathan.
No, wait, I have more to say.
Yeah, exactly. He wants to give a why too.
Oh, see, this is a great example. My uniqueness. I want to explain myself. So this reminds me of one of the things we do to help people, like I guess a pitch on how we help people from Musical Life Church. The experiences people have are valid, whether we're helping teachers, and I'm talking even in the secular world. So I'll share this same pitch to pastors. I've done this to pastors who are leading churches, senior pastors. I've seen Jonathan do this to teachers or business men and women, whatever context you're in. What we want to do is affirm the experiences they've had and affirm the stories they have of how they've helped either kids or other church members or whatever field they're in. Psychologists helping their patients, their clients, life coaches, sports coaches, whatever. What we like to say is, if helping a person in whatever field you're in is 10 steps, you already have steps 3 through 10. Those steps are the process you've developed for helping people, the stories you have, the experiences you have, the contextual situations that you've come to learn over your tenure in whatever profession it is. What we offer is steps 1 and 2. And what this does is it not only helps people understand the difference between what we're offering at Music Life Church, or really, if you look at what we're offering in the podcast, all 60 episodes from really 120 episodes now that are available are really in the context of steps 1 and 2. And what this foundational information does is it helps you do steps 3 through 10 that you already have on purpose, more effectively. And steps 1 and 2 are summed up by your thought process and your uniqueness. And when those 2 steps are missed, whether or not you actually are going to help somebody is going to be dependent on the contextual version of how you help people, whether or not it hits that person specifically in their uniqueness and with whatever thought process they're in. And we're talking then so what happens then, the way this ends up working is you get pastors rationalizing how they've helped people because one person in 100 was helped. They want to say, hey, it was all worth the one person out of 100 that I helped. Until they're asked the question, even at the expense of the 99? Because if you're not helping somebody, you're hurting them. There's no zero events. I'm either helping you or hurting you. I'm either helping you grow or helping you get worse. We don't stay the same in any given moment. Our thought process is changing. We are transforming either worse or better. And if how I'm helping people is resulting in 1 out of 100 actually getting better, that means 99 are getting worse. That's what happens when people ignore steps 1 and 2. And I think, and this is true for any context of helping any field, whether it's psychology, whether it's pastors in churches, it's laborers, or educators in the schools, sports coaches, what have you, parents with their kids. So yeah, I think this along with how our brains work are the 2 things that, to be a laborer, to be a psychologist, to be a pastor, which really we're both a version of laborers in a different field. Without those 2 things, we're going to end up hurting more people than we're helping.
Amazing. I 100% agree. Honestly, psychology and the church needs to have an answer for the mind and the soul of the individual.
Nice. Yeah.
So motivational spiritual gifts are an answer to the soul of the individual. It says in eternity that we're going to get a stone with our name on it. That's also going to show us what our soul is. And it's going to be even more specific than our motivational spiritual gifts are, because
Right.
I'm a compassion server and you, Dr. Ellie, are a compassion server as well, but we are not the same. So psychology and the church needs to have an answer for the unique soul of the individual. The Bible calls it a mind sometimes and a soul other times, but it's the mind and the soul together. That's one part. We need to have an answer for that. It's like what Pastor Joel said, psychology and the church are not going to be able to help people until they have an answer. That is, I would say, at least at the motivational spiritual gift level.
Yeah.
And then it can go deeper, because we also say that a step deeper than that is discovering your personal vision statement,
Right.
which has our motivational spiritual gifts within it. So we help people progress even to a more specific level. We're not renaming people. We're not giving anybody white stones. That's not our job, but that will happen. It'll get more specific than that, which is exciting. So we need to have an answer for that. And then Pastor Joel nailed it again. The thought process of the individual, the brain. Psychology needs to have an answer for that. So the church, psychology, human beings, we need a model for how the mind and the brain works.
Right.
We need to have something that we're using, the step 1 and step 2, to help anyone with anything. And hopefully the psychologists that don't have that yet are strong and courageous to pursue that answer.
Right.
And I think we'll find out who truly wants to help people as they are presented with an answer that they do not have. Not that they don't have one already, but everything boils down to what is going to be psychology and the church's response to being given an answer that for human history has been claimed as a mystery?
Ooh. Ooh.
Yeah.
I just feel like I just feel like we're on the brink of something here, guys. I really do.
I agree.
Kind of in the next, I don't know, I'm not sure the time scale, but I feel like a lot of people are going to have to answer that question and decide which way they want to go. That's how I feel about it. So, right. Oh my goodness, this has been epic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Epic.
Amazing.
I've just absolutely loved it. And I suppose I'll just finish with a little gush, as I am prone to do, and say thank you so much to both of you. I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed listening to the podcast. I think I've shared with you both, but I'm just going to share it again here now. So I got into a little ritual when I was listening to these. I knew I was going to be interviewing you both. Listen to What the Flock at bedtime with my notepad and paper, write down my questions. Then I'd listen to the sister episode on the Malt podcast, which inevitably answered my questions. And
Wow.
it's just been an absolute delight to listen to them, and thank you both so much for the time and effort you've put into them. For your teachings, and just for bringing this to people, and as somebody who I would never have said I was a religious person, but I was open to listening to it, and it's just answered so many questions for me and helped me in so many ways. So I can't thank you both enough. So thank you ever so much for joining me today. And I hope that we will be able to do it again at some point. But for now, just for anybody who's listening, if you've been hurt by psychology, then we're here for you.